Okay, so we're going to take a break this week from the usual subject, which is shiurim in the Mamarim of the Rebbe. Instead, we're going to learn a sicha of the Rebbe. Yeah, it's here. Don't worry, you have to be patient. It's a sicha of the Rebbe that's very pertinent to our times. And I'm referring specifically to the situation in Eretz Yisrael, where without getting into into details into what the Rebbe calls Dvarim HaMetzarim, but the matzav over there is not good. You have over there tens of thousands, or maybe even over 100,000 Yidden who have to leave their home and can't return home yet. You have, of course, over 100 Yidden who are being held captive. You have the fact that Israel's enemies attacked Israel, and in many ways did things that were humiliating and defeated Israel to the Yidden, at least in that moment, and that could set a precedent for other people who might chas v'shalom think that they could do the same thing and get away with it. And in the meantime, we don't see the Israelis fighting back with the full force. In other words, they're fighting back, but it doesn't seem like they're fighting back to win. Every day you hear reports of more units being pulled out over there, and more ways that they're giving in to the American pressure, and they're giving in to the Arab pressure. They're sending them food, and they're limiting the firepower that they're using. So the question is, how do we deal with it? It seems like it's not a good matzav. On the other hand, we know we're living in the times of Mashiach. And the first question that we have is, how could such a thing happen, especially in our times? This is a day, it's a day that's taken straight out of the Holocaust, and that such a thing should happen. Dafka in the times of Mashiach, Dafka in the times when the world is pashat ready for the Gilui of Mashiach, and such a thing should happen now. That's the first thing. So it's just very, very hard to deal with on an emotional level. It's very hard to deal with to be optimistic and to see the light that's coming. And it's also important to understand and to know what's our answer to all the things that the world is saying. In other words, the world is coming over here and making a claim. They're making an announcement. They're saying there's Palestinians, and they're saying that Israel conquered Palestine. And what's our answer to that? Because without a clear answer, if we're going to come up with the old answers, the answers that we had until now, we see fell apart. You had a situation where certain Yidden, we're not going to talk now about the fact that halacha and Yiddish hashkafa disagrees with it, but you had a situation where people came up with this idea called Zionism, and they believed in it, and they believed that it gave them a right to Eretz Yisrael, and this is the place that's the homeland for the Yidden. And slowly over the years, like the Rebbe says, any idea that's not firmly founded in Torah is not eternal, and therefore it's just a trend of the time. And given a certain amount of time, this is a letter that the Rebbe writes to Ben Gurion. The Rebbe writes to him, I'm writing you this letter, not in an official capacity, and not even in a half official capacity. I'm writing to you this letter as a personal letter. And in the letter, the Rebbe implores from Ben Gurion to anchor the existence of Eretz Yisrael and the behavior in Eretz Yisrael on values that come from Torah, not on other values. I don't even know if the Rebbe mentions clearly Zionism, but obviously the Rebbe is talking about Zionism, because the Rebbe says that things come and go. The world is full of ideas and movements, social movements, and ideas that come and go, and they don't have any staying power. And the Rebbe writes to him that the only thing that has staying power is the staying power of Torah. And you see this massive erosion of the belief in the idea of Zionism side within Israel, and side the acceptance of that idea over the entire world. We see all of these demonstrations happening in all of the Western capitals, all over American universities, absolutely and completely rejecting the idea that they didn't have any right to Eretz Yisrael, because they're coming to them and they're saying, what are you saying your right to Eretz Yisrael is? Your right to Eretz Yisrael is Zionism? We disagree. We say there's Palestinians over there, it's Palestine. You guys stole it from them, and in truth, the entire Palestine should be free. And that's what we're claiming, and that's what we're demanding, and that's what we're chanting. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, and free Palestine. Narvas, you have some goyim who aren't willing to condone the mass murder of Yidden and removing all the Yidden from Eretz Yisrael. So they're willing to allow some of the Yidden to stay, maybe in some way or another. What's for sure is that that we have to give up on our right to live in Eretz Yisrael, and maybe because they're going to be nice to us, so we could we could stay over there in some limited capacity, in some kind of a framework. What's our answer to that? What's the answer of a Yid to that? What do we say to the world? Okay, so these two things the Rebbe addresses in this Sikha, which is unbelievable because the Sikha was said on Shabbos Parshas Breishis, in a Farbrengen, which is a continuation to Simchas Torah. So that year in Chutz La'aretz, Shmini Atzeres was Thursday, Friday was Simchas Torah, and then immediately, without any hefsek in between them, started Shabbos, and this Farbrengen was a continuation of Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe speaks over here in the Sikha about things and ways that are not parallels to what's going on in Eretz Yisrael now. It's mamish what's going on in Eretz Yisrael now. The questions are literally questions about what's going on now. The analysis is literally an analysis of what's going on now, and the answers are an answer to exactly what we're supposed to do now. And it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to see how the Rebbe is literally 30 or 40 years ago nearly talking about things that are happening now and telling us how to deal with it, both on a personal level, how we're supposed to feel about it, how are we supposed to feel afraid and pessimistic and defeated and sad about what's going on over here. That's first of all. And second, what's our answer? And the answer comes in two parts. The first part of the answer comes in this Sikha, which, like I said, was said on Shabbos Parshas Breishis, which was a continuation to Simchas Torah Sikha. And over here, the Rebbe answers the question on an ethical, philosophical level, on a theoretical, on the framework level, on our rights. The next year, Toshin Nun Beis, also Shabbos Parshas Breishis, the Rebbe speaks another Sikha, where over there again, the Rebbe addresses on a practical level exactly what's going on in Eretz Yisrael now, exactly the main reason why the Israelis aren't willing to fight. In other words, after what's missing in a lack of conviction and belief in the right of your way and in the right of your solution. In other words, all of the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael now believe that we have a right to defend ourselves and to protect ourselves and to take revenge on the enemies who tried to hit us, and to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But where many Yidden, over the whole world, start getting a little weak, is saying, what's going to be with the day after? Then we're going to have to again be an occupying force. They don't feel that they have a right to the place itself. So they're sure that, yes, we have to protect our lives, and these people are murderers, they're vicious, barbaric murderers, and we have to get back our captives, etc. We have to ensure the security of our lives. But then afterwards, we have to come up with some accommodation. We have to allow for them to take over the land in some way or another, is really ultimately what people are saying. So that's what the Rebbe deals with it on this level, and to give us the conviction so we should know what we're doing is right today, tomorrow, and for eternity. And the second part is on a practical level. You can ask, but how can we do it? We can't do it. We can't do it. And that the Rebbe addresses in the Sikha that Mitzvah Hashem will learn next week, where the Rebbe talks about that issue on a practical level. So let's start. I'm going to jump around in the Sikha because it's a very long Sikha, and we're going to finish it in one shir. So I'm going to jump around to the parts that are relevant to the topic for today. We're starting on the first page of the Sikha. So this is the Sikha Shabbos Parshas Breishis, Tafshin Nun Aleph. It's printed in Sefer HaSichos. We're starting on page 62, the end of the first column. In Yonishal Simchas Torah, the idea of Simchas Torah Mudgush B'Parshas HaKarbonis Hayom is emphasized in the Parsha, which discusses the Karbonis that the Yidden brought on that day. Sayin Kriyas HaTorah and Sayin Davening in Musaf, we read, By Yom Hashmini Atzeres Tiyeh Lechem. On the 8th day, I'm asking you, Yidden, to please stay with me. Don't leave yet, even though the 7 days of Sukkot are over. Stay here. V'yikraftem par echad ayel echad. And you should bring to me a carbon, a single ox, and a single ram. So what's the idea of this Yom Tov? Isa b'medish. You find that on the Yom Tov of Sukkot, the Yidden bring 70 karbanos, a total of 70 karbanos throughout the 7 days, and these correspond, and they're brought on behalf of the 70 nations. This is what's happening throughout the entire Sukkot. Says the Eivishter, after 7 days of dealing with the Goyim, that's enough. Now do me a favor, you are my children, you are my nation. Do me a favor now, bring a carbon for yourself. We had enough worrying about other people, taking care of other people. Now is a day for us. On the 8th day will be a day when you will stay here and remain with me, and it will be a day for you, for the Yidden. And on this day, I'm asking to be captain par echad, not shivim, which correspond to the shivim umas, but rather one ox, ayil echad, one ram. The echad refers to the Yidden, who are also called echad. They're a goy echad ba'aretz. They're a single nation in the world. And the Medrash says, this is a day when it is for the Yidden alone, and there are no foreigners, there are no strangers with them. It is a day on which it is said, Yisrael u'malko bilchudai, the Yidden and the king, the Eibishter, are there alone. Nobody else is invited to this party. Nobody else is invited to this day. And that's the idea of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And now they asks a very obvious question that nobody thinks of. So let's see this question. If this is what the whole idea of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah is, so why then in Simchas Torah do we read the beginning of Parshas Bereishis? What's wrong with the beginning of Parshas Bereishis? If the whole idea of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah is that the Yidden and the Eibishter are alone on the state, it's an exclusive day just for the Yidden and for the Eibishter, and this day is a day where we stand separate and apart from the entire world. Why are we reading in the Torah about the creation of the entire world? I thought you just told me that this day is a day where we are celebrating the connection between the Eibishter and the Yidden, the way they stand above and beyond the entire world. So why were the Chachamim misakin that on this day we should learn the Kriya of Parshas Bereishis, which talks about the creation of the entire world? If we look into the details of the psukim that are in Parshas Bereishis, the question grows even stronger. What does it say in Parshas Bereishis? In the beginning, when the Eibishter created heaven and earth, the earth was in a situation of emptiness, of chaos, and of darkness. And the Eibishter said, let there be light. In the beginning, when the Eibishter created the heavens and the earth, how did it all start? It all started in a situation of it was emptiness and chaos and darkness. And only afterwards the Eibishter said, let there be light. It's not pshat that heaven and earth were created first. No, in the beginning there was darkness. And only afterwards did the Eibishter say, let there be light. So if this is then the contents, the story of Parshas Bereishis that we learn on Simchas Torah, tomorrow, then on the day of Simchas Torah, when we're standing in a state, in a condition of the Yidden and the Eibishter connect and have the party for themselves, they are alone. So Dafka on this day, we are reading about the condition of the world, the state of the world in which it is darkness and emptiness and chaos. You see the question over here. How could it be that Dafka on a day like Simchas Torah, we should have an attack against Yidden in the most terrifying and disgusting and there aren't the right words to describe it. Dafka on such a day should be such a dark day? How does it fit with Simchas Torah? We believe that Simchas Torah is a big Yom Tov. We celebrate Simchas Torah as the day of the greatest joy in the entire year, perhaps rivaled only by Purim. And on this day, the evil forces in the world should be able to do such a thing to Yidden. Yesh Lahesif, and the Rebbe adds now, it's not only a question about Simchas Torah, it's also a question on the Parsha of Bereishis itself. The Indian of Torah is of light, like it says in Mishli Torah. So it's like the Torah should have started from the light part, that the Eibishter said, let there be light, because that's the Indian of Torah. It brings light into the world. The Torah should not have started in Bereshis, that the describing a situation of emptiness and the void and confusion and darkness. Okay. It says there with the answer over here. The answer of what's going on over here. Why in a day like Simchas Torah do we read about a situation? Do we read about the world in general instead of focusing just on the Yidden, which is the idea of Simchas Torah? And not only do we read about the world in general, we also read about the world the way it exists in darkness and in chaos. The answer is like this. The Pirush Tevas Bereshis, Pirush Chazal. In the explanation of the word Bereshis, Chazal explains that the entire world was created b'shvil HaTorah, shenikras Reishis Darkei, or b'shvil Yisrael, shenikra Reishis Tvasei. That the word Bereshis is made up of the letter Beis, which has the numerical value of 2, and Reishis, the word beginning. So the Medrash says that there are 2 beginnings. There are 2 things that precede everything else, that come before everything else, and it is for those 2 things that the entire world was created. What are those 2 things that precede the existence of the world itself? So this is Torah, which is called Reishis, like it says in the Pasuk Reishis Darkei, and it's for the Yidden who are also called Reishis, like it says when they get to the Yidden, Reishis Tvasei, the beginning of my fruit. Everything begins with the Torah and with the Yidden who precede the world itself. And within these 2 things themselves, the Yidden come even before the Torah. That the Yidden are compared to Bikurim, the Torah is compared to Truma, and the Seder in which you bring the gifts to the Kohen and Bikurim come before Truma. So the Yidden come first, then comes the Torah, then comes the world. And this is all hinted at. The Medrash learns this from the word Bereshis, right from the very first word in the Torah, and this is the first word that we read in the Torah on Simchas Torah. The key when Shetachas B'Riyas Ha'olam Shnivra B'Shvil HaTorah B'Shvil Yisrael Shnisava Kadosh Baruch Hu Li'Yisleis Baruch Dira B'Tachtenim Davke. And since why did the Eibishter create this world for the Yidden and for the Torah? What did the Eibishter want that the Yidden and that Torah should do with this world? The Eibishter wanted that there should be a Tachtenim. There should be a lowly world, a place that's very distant from the Eibishter, a place that doesn't recognize and acknowledge the Eibishter, a place that does not behave according to what the Eibishter wants it to behave to. That the lower realms, as they stand as a lower realm, not as they stand as a refined entity, which was already brought up and brought closer to the higher realms. So Dafka, this lowly place, this physical world, in which you can't see the Eibishter, you can't see Elikus, you direle Yisparich. This place should be a dwelling place for the Eibishter. Lachein, therefore, in the beginning, when the Eibishter created the world, he created it in a condition of emptiness and darkness and chaos. In other words, we're saying that the Eibishter created the world. He had a very specific plan in mind. It wasn't the world itself that he was interested in. He was interested in Torah and in Yisrael. He was interested in the Torah and the Yidden. And that's why he created the world. What did he want the Yidden and Torah to do with the world? To transform it from a Tachtenim, from a lowly place, and turn it into a dwelling place for the Eibishter. So if so, how are you going to create the world? You're not going to create the world as a holy and refined place, a place that's filled with light, because then you can't have the work of the Yidden to transform it into a dwelling place for the Eibishter. What's the niceness? What's the Eibishter's taiva? The Eibishter's taiva is there should be a place. We would use the mashal of a king and all of his lands. And there should be one land that's all the way at the end, at the border of his kingdom. And this place is very, very far from the capital city. In the capital city, everybody knows the king, and they serve the king, and they behave in ways that befit the king. But he wanted that Afghan, in the furthest place of his kingdom, where should his main palace be? Where should he live? Where should he feel most at home? Dafka, in that forsaken village, all the way on the border, all the way on the edge, where the people don't know about the king. They never heard about him. They can't see him. They can't experience him. And Dafka over there, he wanted that place should be transformed into the most perfect place where he could have his own personal private home. So it's the same thing with the world. The Eibishter, Kivyachol has the Elam Misilyanim, he has the world which are full of holiness, which are full of Kedusha, which are full of light, and they're full of Malachim. They serve the Eibishter with power and with passion that we can't even begin to imagine. But that's not what the Eibishter wants. That's not the Iker Taiva of the Eibishter. The Iker Taiva of the Eibishter is that there should be this physical world, a place which is very distant from the Eibishter. And in this physical world, the Yidden should slowly work with the world, and step by step, by following the Torah and doing its mitzvahs, step by step, we should lift up with this world. We should change it and make it a place that the Eibishter can feel comfortable in, and not only that, that the Eibishter can call it his home. And this is going to ultimately be completed when Mashiach comes. But if that's the plan, first you need to have a world which is very distant from the Eibishter. If the Eibishter made the world like the Elam Misilyanim, then why bother making the world in the first place? You have the Elam Misilyanim already. So the world specifically needs to be created as a place of darkness, as a place of chaos. And that's why we have in the beginning of Parshas Bereishis that the Eibishter created the world in a way of darkness. And only afterwards starts a system and an order of let there be light. Even though in the beginning the Eibishter already brought in a little bit of light into the world, but the primary work and the completeness of bringing light into this world happens through the Torah and through the Yidden that learn the Torah and that follow its ways. And the mitzvahs are compared to a candle and the Torah is compared to light. So through this, we bring light into the world and turn the world itself into a bright and shiny and light-filled area where the Eibishter can live. So from this we understand So we need to understand over here something very important. What the Rebbe is describing over here is the general work of Yidden in the entire world. In other words, we're describing the system of the world itself. Just like in Basi Lagani, which the Rebbe told us, Basi Lagani is the Frierdiker Rebbe's instructions to us how to deal with the world in the most all-encompassing way. In other words, the most general idea and sense of what the purpose of the world is, what our place in it is, how we're supposed to be working over here in this world, and how we're supposed to bring Mashiach. And what's the fundamental idea that the Frierdiker Rebbe starts the Maimah with? Dira b'tachtenim, with that Iker Shechina b'tachtenim. So that is pointing out to us that Bereishis starts with this idea. Bereishis starts as giving us instructions on the purpose of the entire world and how we're supposed to work with it. How do we see that right in the beginning? The general Aveda of the Yidden in the entire world is all described right there. The first thing you have to know is Bereishis. You have to know the word Bereishis. In other words, Hadgashas Mailas HaTorah v'Yisrael Shenikru Reishis. First, we emphasize the Maila of the Torah and the Yidden, that they are called Reishis, they are called things that precede. Shekadmu Leilam, they preceded the world. And since we have this word Bereishis, which notifies us and reveals to us that we, the Yidden and Torah, came before the world and we stand higher than the world, so this gives us the strength and the ability to work in this world and to change it and to be victorious over it. Which was created in the first place only for the Yidden and only for Torah. Of course, you shouldn't think that the world was created for the Yidden and therefore we have the right to do with the world whatever we want and to behave in it which way we want. No, that's the idea of a goy. You tell a goy, yeah, like we know a certain nation in Europe decided that they were, the supreme nation, they were the superior race, and we see the behavior that came out of that. No, for a Yid, when you say that the world was created for you, it doesn't mean that you get to do with it whatever you want and you get to do to others whatever you want. No, what it means is, that we have to bring the light of Torah and mitzvahs to our own lives and to the entire universe. Which through this we will make from the world a dwelling place for the Eibishter. And afterwards, so that's the beginning. That's our starting point. But then we have to actually start doing the work. When we come to actually doing the work, we start in an order where we start in a condition of darkness, in a condition of chaos and emptiness and a void. And only afterwards, Only afterwards, slowly but surely, we reveal in the world through the power of Torah the idea of Yehi, which was all the way in the beginning, and slowly but surely we add more and more in the light that's brought into the world until until ultimately we lead to the fulfillment of the purpose which the Eibster created the world, which is to have it as his own personal home. So this is the fundamental idea that the Rebbe teaches us over here in this Sikha. I mean, we know it from other places, but the Rebbe points it out to us and points out to us that it is a fundamental idea that applies to the way the entire existence operates. Existence itself operates based on this system, like we see from Parshas Bereishis, and the Rebbe is going to bring us a few more examples where we see that we have this system. That we start off with in this world, it always starts off with a situation of darkness, of chaos, of emptiness, and only afterwards you have. So the first thing is we see the way it is in Parshas Bereishis. Also in the order in which a Yid learns Torah, it also goes in this very same order. Amru Chazal say, Havlad b'me'ei imoim lamdi noise kol ha-Torah kula. When the child is in his mother's womb, a malach teaches him the entire Torah. V'kivan shabo la'avir ha'elam. As soon as he enters the world, malach l'starei al piv, a malach comes and slaps him on his mouth. U'meshakchei kol ha-Torah kula, and he causes him to forget the entire Torah. But there's no explanation of this yet, because we have over here a tremendous question. If you're going to make him forget it, then why are you teaching it to him? We're wasting his time. And if you're going to teach it to him, then why are you making him forget it? He already knew the whole Torah. Why does he have to forget it all? So the idea in this, the being in this is the fact that the child was taught the entire Torah when he was in his mother's womb. This makes him a keli to be able to then identify with and connect with and perceive and absorb the ideas of Torah in his being, in his existence. So we see again over here that we have the same system that we start learning Torah. Just like you have Bereishis, which is the Nesinas Koach for Yisrael and for Torah, so too you have that Nesinas Koach when it comes to each individual Yid learning Torah. That when he's above the world, before he starts breathing in the air of the world and he starts eating from the food of the world, when he's in his mother's womb. So over there he's given a Nesinas Koach. He's given the power and the ability to learn Torah. So he's already in a complete state. He's already knows the entire thing. But when it comes to working actually in the world, so then you have to start from the bottom up. A malach comes, he causes him to forget it, and now he has to start from zero. Even Aleph base he doesn't know, he has to be taught Aleph base. The child starts to learn Torah when he's in a state, in a condition of darkness and concealment and in a place of not knowing things. And only through his work, bit by bit, slowly but surely, it becomes revealed within him the light of Torah, and he goes step after step, increasing in his knowledge and in his study of Torah, like it says in Pirkei Avos, ben Chamish Shanim Lemikra, then ben Esar Shanim Lemishnah, until he comes to learning and knowing the entire Torah, which is a chiyuv in every single Yid. So over here we see the Seder in Limud Torah when it comes to how the Yid learns Torah. Let's look at the Seder in Limud Torah when it comes to Torah itself. How is the study of Torah itself structured? When you study every individual idea and concept in Torah, where do you start learning it? First in Torah Shebechsav, like we just mentioned from the Pirkei Avos, ben Chamish Shanim Lemikra, you start with Torah Shebechsav. And only afterwards do you learn the explanation of that which you learned in Torah Shebechsav, in Torah Shebal Peh. Why? In Torah Shebechsav, it is the words are hidden, the meaning of the words are hidden and they're sealed. We can't take it apart, we can't understand it. The Torah, the pasuk, in other words, in Chumash, does not explain to us how and what exactly is it that we're supposed to do until Teresh Shabbal Peh explains it to us. L'dugma, for example, b'mitzvahs netilas lulav b'chag HaSukkos, dimneas linen. When it comes to the mitzvah of shaking lulav and esrog, which happens in the Yom Tov of Sukkot, which when the Rebbe said the Sikh, they were just parting from the Yom Tov of Sukkot. In Teresh B'Tzav, you won't find the name of the fruit. It says Pri Eitz Hadar. It's hidden. It's sealed. What is this Pri Eitz Hadar? Lulav ahadas. It doesn't say kapis tmarim. It doesn't say lulav. It doesn't say ahadas. Ela b'loshin sasum. Pri Eitz Hadar. Kapas tmarim v'anaf eitz avis. Epes some branch from a type of a bush which grows, intertwined. And you have to have an entire study and a back and forth in the Teresh Shabbal Peh to take it apart and explain it to you that it's talking about the lulav and the esrog and the hadas and the oven. So over here you see again a system where you start in darkness, in a situation of uncertainty, and only later through Teresh Shabbal Peh, now you can understand what you learned in Teresh B'Chsav in Chumash. The Tama Davar, and the reason is, the framework for the entire universe and for our entire life and for the entire history of the Jewish nation working in this world is what? Is Dira B'Tachtenim. And Dira B'Tachtenim is a system where you have a Tachten, you have something that's far away, distant from the Eibishter, and dark, in other words, and chaos and void, and then you bring that thing close to the Eibishter. That's the way the world works. So first darkness and then light. So therefore, even in the study of Torah itself, which Torah is Eid, it's light, and it brings light to the world, but even in Torah itself, you have a Seder where you start with darkness and concealment, where the understanding of the pasuk is far away from you, is beyond you, you can't understand it, and only then you come to Hein B'Yachas La'Adam. It's how we get to the person that he can't understand it, because Meshachei Kol HaTorah Kula, he forgets the entire Torah, and now he finds himself a total Lamar, it's a total ignoramus when it comes to Torah, so he starts in darkness. And even the Torah itself, which is Torah, is also in a state of darkness and concealment, because you can't understand what the pasuk is telling you. What's without Torah Shabbal Peh? What's Vahila Teitafes Beinenecha? Like the Alter Rebbe points out, we don't even know where Beinenecha is without Torah Shabbal Peh. We don't know what this Teitafes is. That should be these tefillin. Moshe Rabbeinu taught us exactly what the tefillin is supposed to look like. Without that, we would have no idea what the pasuk is saying. So it starts in darkness, and then the Torah Shabbal Peh later brings light. Okay. We're going to move now to page 66. The middle of the second column of page 66. Okay, so the first thing is that David showed us the way the system in this world is first darkness and then light. We see it in the fact that on Simchas Torah, which is the day of Yisrael Malkol B'Chadai, Dafka on that day we lane in the Torah of Aretz that the world was in a situation of darkness and chaos and emptiness, and only then do we get to start bringing Vayehi the light into the world. We see it also in the Seder of how a Yid learns Torah, that he starts off knowing nothing, and only later, as he grows in life, does he start becoming more knowledgeable in Torah. And we see it in Torah itself. That Torah itself is structured in a way where you start off with Torah Shebechsav, which you can't understand properly, and only then you come to the proper understanding. So it's always and constantly and everywhere a system of from dark to light, because it's a Dira B'Tachtenim. We have to start with the Tachtenim and only then bring light into it. What do we have in Parshas Bereishis? Right in the beginning, on the first pasuk, we have the famous Rashi. Parshas Bereishis Mefarish Rashi. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, the Torah should have started from Achedesh Hazelachem. Why? Because Torah teaches us the mitzvahs that we are supposed to perform. And the first mitzvah that the Yidden were given was the mitzvah of Reish Chodesh. And therefore we should have started from the parsha of Achedesh Hazelachem. She mitzvah Rishon Shem Stav B'Yisrael. Umatam Pasach B'Bereishis. Why did the Torah start from Bereishis? The Eibishter wanted to notify us, to let us know the power and the might of his actions, that he created the entire world, and he wanted to give us the inheritance of the nations. He wanted to give us the land that belonged to the nations of the world. If the nations of the world will tell the Yidden, listim atem, you are thieves. Shekvashtem atzes shiva goyim. You conquered the lands of the 7 nations. The Yidden answer to these nations and to the world. The entire world belongs to the Eibishter. He created it and gave it to the ones who he saw fit, to those nations of the world. It was his will to give it to them. And it was his will, he took it from them, and gave it to us, the Yidden. This is the answer. It's one very simple thing. Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Yidden because the Eibishter gave it to us. And we'll get back to this idea later. But first, Rebbe has a question. In order to take away this taina that the goyim shouldn't be able to bother the Yidden and tell us that we are occupiers and we are thieves and we're taking away other people's lands, they used to give Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden, and then nobody has a problem with it. So first you're going to give it to Masa'elim and make yourself a problem. And now they're going to come and scream at us and say occupiers. And so you tell us, you have a problem, I'll give you a solution. Remember, I'm the one who created the world and it belongs to me and I gave it to you. Wouldn't it be much more just give it to them and that's it first. Give it to them first. Even if you're going to say that for whatever reason, the Eibishter wanted to give it to the Goyim first, and then take it from them and give it to us. And therefore now we need to answer the claim of the Goyim that why does it all belong to you? That they tell us, you are occupiers over here. Why does this answer have to be in the beginning of Torah, which Torah is Milashon Hira? Hira libnei Yisrael ba'atzma. This is not something that's teaching us how to deal with it. Torah's place isn't to teach us how to deal with the Goyim. Torah's place is primarily to teach a Yid how to live in this world. If a Yid also has to answer a Goy about something, so it'll be written in Torah somewhere. But it's not the primary thing of Torah to tell us how to answer the slanderous claims of the Goyim. That's not the meaning of Torah. If somebody has to go to court and answer some frivolous lawsuit that somebody brings against him, so he goes to court and he responds to the lawsuit and he proves his righteousness. But that's the Indian of a person. The Indian of a person is to defend himself against every disgusting claim that somebody makes against him. No, the person has his own life. Torah, the idea of Torah is how a Yid is supposed to live. It's a small detail in case you need to answer some guy who's bothering you. So we'll tell you also, but that should come right in the first pasuk, right in the first pasuk of the Torah. We could say it after a few parshas. That has a few suggestions. Dugma, for example, wouldn't have been more appropriate with Bris Bein Absarim. When the Eibishter promises Avraham Avinu, tells him, I'm going to give you Eretz Yisrael. So over there saying, if the Goyim are going to claim, list them out and tell them, tell them that I created the world. So which over there is where the Eibishter promises Avraham Avinu Zaracha to your descendants, Nasatis, I have given this land, Esakeni, Esayavusi, Eser Umas, all the 10 nations. Why is it right at the beginning of Torah? So 2 questions. First question is, why did the Eibishter do this? So first he gave it to the Goyim and then the Yidden, and only afterwards to the Yidden, and now we have to deal with this problem of answering their claims. And second of all, why does it have to say it right at the beginning of the Torah? However, according to the idea that we learned just before earlier in the Sikh, we have an answer for this. Just like in the entire universe, the Seder is, and in the entire creation, the Seder is that first you have darkness, then you have light. Eretz Yisrael itself follows this model. That first you had a situation of Las Islam Nachlas Goyim, Shakavani Shesol Yasu Min Nachlas Goyim. You should first have a situation of a land that belongs to Goyim, Tachtenim, and turn that and transform that into Eretz Yisrael, which what's Eretz Yisrael? It's a Dirle Yisparach. Eretz Yisrael is the land where the Eibishter is there. And therefore, in the beginning, the Eibishter gave it to them, which, and therefore, because the Eibishter first gave it to them, you could say that there's a possibility, and even Teda itself says that you could make such a claim. It was our property, it belonged to us. You conquered the lands of the 7 nations. Why? Because the Eibishter did give it to the 7 nations in the beginning. So you could come with a taina and say that Eretz Yisrael doesn't belong to Yidden, and this is a just and moral taina, belongs to other people. And therefore we need an answer to this taina, that kol ha'aretz l'kadosh baruch hu. The world does not belong to the people. It does not belong to the Goyim. It does not belong to this nation or to that nation. The world belongs to the Eibishter, who bra. He created it. And he gives the world and every country within it, he gives to the people that he wants to give it to. The Eibishter's purpose in creating the world was to give it to those who he wants to give it to. And in this case of Eretz Yisrael, the Yisrael, the Yidden are the Eibishter's nation. Bereshis b'shvil Yisrael. The whole world was created in the first place for the Yidden. Shnikru Reishis. Why did the Goyim have Eretz Yisrael for a period of time? The Eibishter wanted that the Yidden should make from Eretz Yisrael out of land that belongs to Goyim who don't believe in the Eibishter. The Eibishter wanted to give it to them, to the Goyim, that it should be a place that's distant and dark as far as closeness to the Eibishter is concerned. And then, when the Son alone, then he gave it to us so that we could bring into it the light of the Eibishter, the light of Torah. And that's why the entire Torah, right in the first pasuk, starts telling us this story of Bereishis. What's the reason why the entire Torah starts with Bereishis, says Rashi to us? The Eibishter put into his Torah, when we learn the Torah, that we should know when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, that the way to deal with it is, that the way to understand Eretz Yisrael is that it's an Indian of Nachlas Goyim, it's an Indian of a place that's distant from the Eibishter, and only afterwards he took it away from them and gave it to us. In other words, that Eretz Yisrael also should be a place of Tachtenim, and we should make a Dira b'Tachtenim, we should make a Dira, a place for the Eibishter, in these Tachtenim, in this place of Eretz Yisrael. Shaseder delimud HaTorah maskil, ba'efen shal helam b'cheshich v'achkach nasa ha'er v'hagili. That the Seder and the start, that, so in other words, by discussing the situation of Eretz Yisrael, what's the situation of Eretz Yisrael? It's a story of Nesana Lahem, and then Netolamem and Nesana Lana. So in the beginning, darkness, and then light. So too in the beginning, the Torah itself starts teaching us one of these ideas. This idea of a system of darkness first and then light. That's the way Torah itself starts off, by teaching us this idea as it applies to Eretz Yisrael, right in the first Rashi, on the first pasuk in Torah. So now the Rebbe added that Eretz Yisrael also falls into this category because the entire universe falls into this category of first darkness and then light. Eretz Yisrael started off, even though the Eibishter had in mind to give Eretz Yisrael to the Yidden from the very beginning. That's why he created Eretz Yisrael. But the way it comes, it develops in the natural order of things that the Eibishter put into the universe, which is first darkness and then light. And why did the Eibishter make this the natural order of things in the universe? Because what does the Eibishter want with the universe? He wants a Dira b'Tachtenim. He wants there to be a place that's far away from him and only over there, and over there he should be able to have a home. So the place has to be created as a place of darkness. If it's not a place of darkness, then it's not Tachtenim. So it's created as a place of darkness that should qualify as distant from the Eibishter. Once it qualifies as distant from the Eibishter, now we could go and take this place and bring it to the Eibishter and bring it closer to him. Okay. Let's go now to page 68, Eitz Ches. in the middle of the first column on page 68. The Rebbe asks on this answer of the Yidden, why do we need this answer for the Goyim? That the entire world belongs to the Eibishter, he created it. Even the nations of the world know and understand intellectually that there's a creator for the world. It says on the American dollar, it says in God we trust. Correct thinking, simple logic dictates nothing can create itself. This idea of ex nihilo, this idea that something spontaneously came out of nothing, has not been observed, has not been seen anywhere. So Seichel dictates and forces us to conclude that nothing can create itself, and therefore, if you see the world, you know that it has a creator. So if Goyim understand there's an Eibishter, so it's a double opposite that the whole world that you can't say that the Yidden stole it because the Eibishter gave it to the Yidden. So why do we need this whole explanation? The Shaila makes sense. If the whole world belongs to the Eibishter, why do we have this question? What are the Yidden doing in Eretz Yisrael? It's a double opposite. We're in Eretz Yisrael because the Eibishter wants us here. So the Rebbe is going to show now an amkus in this answer that we give to the Goyim, and you see it in the words, even if we didn't pay attention to it before. Even though the nations of the world know and understand that there's a creator to the world, their seichel doesn't force them to say that who's the Eibishter of the world? It's the Eibishter of the Yidden, the God of Israel. They know there's a creator. Which creator it is, that seichel doesn't know which one it is, and certainly doesn't compel them and doesn't force them to say that it's the Eibishter that the Yidden say is the Eibishter. And even if they're going to say that, the way the Yidden, the way the Goyim, understand the Eibishter, they understand the Eibishter in the Eifon of Shituf, which we learned in the very first Maimer that we learned in this shir over here. We learned about this. What was it? It's the idea of that when the Goyim think of the Eibishter, they understand the Eibishter on the level of Shituf. We'll explain it in a moment. And there's days that by Goyim they're allowed to believe in Shituf. What does it mean, Shituf? They believe in the Eibishter. In other words, so the Eibishter took this world, and even though he's the creator of the world, but he's not in complete control of the world. He lets other people have a say in how to run the world. That's the idea of Shituf. You say, yes, the Eibishter created the world, because a thing can't create itself. So if you see something exists, you know that there has to be a creator. But after he created it, he lets other people run it. In other words, specifically, he lets other people make decisions about how the world should look and what should happen in the world. And since according to the Goyim Shalom Salem is Shituf, and they take Shituf even further than they should have. They say that there are other forces and other powers that have a say over what happens in this world, and we're not only talking about the primitive Goyim that believed in Avodah Zarah, we're talking about the current Goyim. They believe in this, that there are other forces that have a power in this world. So now we can understand why they can have a taina against the Yidden. Listim atem, you are thieves, you are occupiers. Shekavashtem artz shiva Goyim, you're occupying the lands of the 7 nations, the lands of the Goyim. Since because of the laws of nature, the world should belong to the Goyim, the Eretz Yisrael should belong to the Goyim, not to the Yidden. So over here, they just added a whole new dimension to the conversation. Before, we were talking about what do we say? What do we say? So we say that the Eibishter created the world, and he decided that he's going to be giving us Eretz Yisrael. And that's our right to this land. And that's why we're here, because he gave us Eretz Yisrael. But the Rebbe says that you're having this conversation not with yourself. Yeah, you're not talking in a bubble over there, in an echo chamber. where everybody amplifies, the same thing that they want to hear from everybody else. You're talking over here to the Goyim. And the Goyim are going to say, I don't believe in your Eibishter. If I don't believe in your Eibishter, and even if I did believe in your Eibishter, but we're living over here in the natural world, in the physical world, so maybe your Eibishter created the world, but now it's already a world that runs by the rules of nature, by the laws of nature, the laws of Newtonian physics and quantum mechanics and alle andere gute Sachen, and human philosophies, human governments, systems that we put together, and international law, and the Hague, and the United Nations. There's a natural order of things over here, the way the world runs, and this isn't the world that we exist in. This is the world that we exist in. So it's very nice that you have your belief in this, that, or the other, but this is the natural world, and this is what we're going to say over here. So let's look a little closer to what the Yidden tell the Goyim, and we'll see what our answer to them is. And it's critical that we understand that this is the answer, that we say it loud, that we say it proudly without any hesitation. First of all, to ourselves, we have to know what we're saying. Second of all, to our fellow Yidden, we have to be able to explain to them and say, what is the point? And third of all, to the Goyim, we have to be able to announce it. This is what the Yidden answer the Goyim. You should know you're making a mistake. You have it all wrong. You should know, yes, the Eibishter of the Yidden is the true Eibishter. He is the one who created the world. There are no other forces that have any power or any say over what happens in the world. Not the Kechavim Umazalis, not the laws of nature, not in any of the institutions that people created. Hubra, our Eibishter, this Eibishter created it. Unisana, and he runs it, and he gave it to us. Yisrael, Eimrim, Umevarim, Lumas Ha'elam. The Yidden declare and explain to the nations of the world, Sha'emesi. The truth is this. Shekala Aretzi, Shalakadosh Baruch Hu, Levade, the entire world belongs to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. To the Yidden, to the Eibishter, that the Yidden are saying who the Eibishter is. Kivan Shehu B'ra Unisana. Since he's the one who created it, therefore nobody else has a right to make any institutions, to make any systems of law, or to lay claim to any part of the world. Hu Levade, he alone and nobody else. Without the say of any other entity being able to tell him what to do. Because all of the constellations and the stars, and certainly the UN and the Hague and the international law and the American government and the EU, etc., which it seems that the hashpah to the world comes through them, because that's the system that the Eibishter created, that in Golus, the chayis that comes to the world comes through these kechavim umazalis, and it comes through the goyim, like we'll see in Mitzvah Hashem in next week's Sikha. Nevertheless, even though it's coming through them, ein lehem shilton klal chas v'sholem, they have no power over it, they have no decision making over it, they cannot say what's right, what's wrong, to who this should go, or to who it shouldn't go. The eino melech hagazin b'yad hachetziv, they are nothing more than an axe in the hands of the stonecutter. And in other words, they follow the instructions of the Eibishter. And that's the reason why the taina of listimatim, that the Yidden are thieves, is removed. Why? Because there's an Eibishter, he's balabas over the whole world, and he's the only balabas over the whole world. And that's the ultimate answer that we give. Why are we here? Because we believe in the Eibishter, this Eibishter of the Yidden. And he gave us Eretz Yisrael. He who is the one who is the sole Deazager, the only one who has a say in what happens in the world, he's the one who gave us this land. He gave it to the ones who we saw fit to give it to them. Initially, he gave it to the Goyim, and it was the Eibishter's will to take it away from them, and to give it to us, to the Yidden. We're going to skip again now to where it really starts talking about what's going on today. So that's on page 72, the second column, Sif Yud Gimel. And now we're going to get to taking these ideas in Torah and applying them to the situation that we're living through, the days that we're living through right now, that the Rebbe told us back in Tafshin Nun Aleph. And if when you read these words, you can't see how the Rebbe just said these words, it's like the Rebbe said these words now, after seeing what's going on in the world and talking about what's going on in the world now, it's you could literally tell somebody this was a speech that was made by somebody after seeing what happened in Eretz Yisrael now. And the taka is this is Rebbe talking to us about now. Yeah. We're not there yet though.
No, it's not Zoom.
I don't know.
The Ha'amar Le'el, based on these ideas of Torah that we just finished learning, Yesh Gam Limud V'Ha'ira B'Shachas L'Tkufaseinu Zu, we also have something to learn and to understand and again to the times that we're living in. La'ach Resim Shnas Tov Shenun, a Yid could ask, and the Yid could feel very bad within himself. Why? Because after we just finished the year Tov Shenun, which the Rebbe said is Tehei Shnas Nisim, a year of miracles, and we're in the beginning of a time of Tavshin Nun Aleph, which is at Enu Niflois. And what's the times that we're living in today, says the Rebbe? This is a time, not a time of pogroms. This is not a time of Holocaust. This is not a time of Golus. This is not a time of Yidden being persecuted by inquisitions, by crusades, etc. Rather, we see what's the anhaga of the world. What are the times that we live in? It is a time of nisim v'niflois, ad l'niflois gedolis, until the greatness in v'leirak b'efen d'lois niflois k'lens levadei she'ein bal nes makar b'nisya l'gam b'efen golilein kol. And these tremendous nisim that be'etzem are beyond what the world can comprehend come in a revealed way. Why? Because this is all me'ein v'dugmas v'hachana l'nisim v'niflois the gula hasid love. Take it from Yad Mamash. These are all similar to, and they're a preparation, and they bring us towards the nisim and the flesh are going to happen when Mashiach comes. And this is the times that we live in now. Which on the time of Mashiach there will be tremendous niflois. And then it brings a few examples where we see that these are the times that we're living in now. In strong and in mighty and in great countries. Deb is referring over here to the USSR, one of the two superpowers that existed at the time. And I believe in total population surpassed the population of the United States. The orders of governance and the orders of law are changing for the good. Goodness, righteousness, and correctness, and uprightness. In other words, whereas before Tavshin Nun and Tavshin Nun Aleph, the entire Russian government was based on the system of communism, which beginning ideologically all the way going through to how practically it was implemented was the most murderous regime that existed in the history of mankind. Do you know that there was not a more murderous regime in the history of humanity? Stalin killed, I believe, close to 50 million people. It might be 20 million in the gulags, and then in the various wars, I believe that there were a few more tens of millions of people, which was primarily responsible for by allying with Nazi Germany in the beginning. Had he not allied with Nazi Germany in the beginning, many of the millions of dead that he brought to wouldn't have happened. So, Pasha, the most murderous regime, worse than the Nazis. So we have over here, that was the system then. And it started changing just at that time. It started changing. Communism fell apart. The USSR fell apart, right? It started with glasnost and then perestroika, whatever the words, openness, and what was the other idea? And free markets, and then reconstruction, and then eventually the USSR as a governing entity fell apart, and it went back to Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, etc. And this is there says why was it happening then? Because the world was entering the times of goodness, and when the world will be refined and behave appropriately in a proper manner, which is going to happen ultimately when Mashiach comes. And we saw this change also when it came to the relationship of these countries with the Yidden. Whereas before they did not let the Yidden practice their religion, and if a Yid wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael or to other places, they would not let them go. They changed. They gave absolute and complete freedom to everything that has to do with Yiddishkeit. There was the lighting of the menorah in the Kremlin, Teiro Mitzvah Adli Tiyasam Shalmeis Alpha Yehudim Lechedus, until the Yidden were allowed, hundreds of thousands of Yidden were allowed to leave, which this was Me'ein V'Dugmas V'Hachana. It was similar and a preparation for the Kibbutz Galias when all the Yidden will return to Eretz Yisrael, B'chinas Taimeh Chaim Zachu. Just like we taste from the food on Erev Shabbos, this was a taste of what's going to happen, the Yemei Mashiach, when Mashiach is going to come. So that's one area where you saw tremendous nisim, and they are testimony to the times that we live in, that we are living in Mashiach times, not in times of persecution. And then you had Hamayrais b'Mifratz HaParsi. You had the events in the Persian Gulf, which are Misimane HaGeula, like the Rebbe quotes the famous Yalkut Shemeni, Commandment Azal v'Negela Malchis Misgaris, that nations instigate war amongst each other. Ubeprati Yisyeser, and more specifically Melech Paras, the Koibe Pashtus al Hashetach Shekule Iraq, the king of Persia, which Bepashtus historically goes on the area of Iraq. Miskara b'Melech Arvi, he instigates a war with the Arabian king, which was in Kuwait, which was by proxy also with Saudi Arabia. And all the nations of the world start tumulting, and they start being afraid and scared. They're worried for another terrible war that's going to happen over the entire world. And the Yidden, the Medrash continues, also start saying, from where should we go? Where should we come? They're running around like a headless chicken. So the Eibishter tells the Yidden, Al tiro, do not fear. The time of your redemption has come. All of these events are simonim, are signs that it is the times of Mashiach. And he finishes this Medrash. Melech HaMashiach stands on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash, which they've explained in another Sichah 770. The roof of the Beis HaMikdash refers to 770. And he lets the Yidden know. Humble ones, Yidden, the time of Mashiach has come, which is what the Rebbe was telling us in Tafshin now, that the time of Mashiach is now. However, on the other hand, you see complete darkness. The nations of the world gather in the United Nations. That the nations of the world begin scheming, and they begin talking in very excited ways, and they start saying, they're coming to the Yidden, and they're telling the Yidden that you are thieves, you are occupiers. They're not only saying that you're occupiers in Aza, or that you're occupiers in Samaria, but rather you're occupiers also and primarily Yehuda, to the land of Yehuda, Yerushalayim, including Yerushalayim, which is Ir Habir Shel Eretz Yisrael, the very capital of Eretz Yisrael, Kiryas Chana David, the city where David HaMelech settled in. And this is exactly what they're saying now. Everybody knows that the atrocities that the Arabs performed against the Yidden, is they gave it the name, the flood of Al-Aqsa, Al-Aqsa being Yerushalayim. Hezbollah, when they send terrorists now to do attacks in the north of Eretz Yisrael, and when they get killed, what title do they give them? A shaheed, a martyr on the road to Yerushalayim. Iran calls its forces the Al-Quds forces. That's a different one, but Iran has many of their missiles named after Al-Quds, which is Yerushalayim. They're all coming and making a claim and saying Yerushalayim. What did the Yemach Shemainik from Hamas say? He said that we're living that this is a very positive development. The act that they did in Gaza reinvigorated and breathed life into the idea that we're going to conquer the entire Israel, and primarily Yerushalayim. There's an institution, an Arab institution in Qatar, which we could believe them that they're not trying to make up conspiracy theories. They did a survey of all the Arab countries in the Middle East and in North Africa. They did interviews with 8,000 people to gather their opinions and their thoughts and their understanding of what's going on now. So the first takeaway that should be known clearly is that 95% of the Arabs, 95%, according to the Arabs and the Doha Institute, you could go check this online, they support what Hamas did. 95% support.
No one came out against them.
5%.
I didn't hear about it.
I didn't hear about it either. And they asked these people, what's the reason for the war? Another question was, what's the reason for the war? The top two reasons, I'm very close. I don't remember the percentages. 30% was maybe because of the occupation in Gaza, and like 29%, it was something like those numbers. 29% was, we are protecting Yerushalayim. So what's going on right now over here is that the nations of the world are coming and screaming, this is not only about Gaza. This is not only about Shemrin. This is about the very heart of the Yidden. It's about Yerushalayim. That's what they call their mission. That's what they're saying their stated goal is. That's what the man on the street, according to the survey, is saying over the entire Middle East and North Africa. They're all saying that this war is about Yerushalayim. Babishah, and we're seeing this darkness at the same time. Everybody knows the answer to this slanderous lie and claim, which is stated clearly in the beginning of Pirush Rashi on the Torah, which the Goyim also know Torah, and they know Chumash and they know Rashi, which is the entire world belongs to the Eibishter, and he alone is the one who has an opinion and a say on what happens in it. He created it and gave it to those who he saw fit to give it to, which is he gave it to us. And what's even more astonishing, included in the people who say this, is not only the Arabs, even conscious who ordinarily do everything in their power to bring about a just and a right and a good situation in the world. The Pashtus Rebbe is talking about the United States of America, which in other Sikhs the Rebbe says, when there's hunger in different countries, they take their military and their eardrop pallets of food to other places, and they encourage goodness over the entire world. Which we see the way they behaved in the Persian Gulf, that they stood up for the right of justice. They saw one nation, Medina, one nation stealing the land of another nation. Iraq stole Kuwait, and they stood up for Kuwait, and they said, no, this is not the way the world is going to work. You can't come and steal another country. And we see now the same thing, America standing up for Ukraine. However, when it comes to the Yidden, suddenly they behave in a different way. And they start making pressure, and they come to Israel and they hug us and they tell us we defend your right, kivyachol, that they're fully supporting us, and behind the scenes they're working and doing everything we could so that we should not fight to win. They're trying to stop us from having a complete and total victory, which is fully within the Eibishter, fully gave it within the ability of the Yidden to have a complete and full victory. It's just because they're caving to the pressure of the world. And they're afraid of the court case in The Hague, and they're afraid what America's going to do, and if they're going to give weapons or not, etc. It's because of all the pressure. So like I said, we're going to learn about that next week. But it's because of all of this that the nations of the world are doing, that they're not fighting a full war. So the first thing is, this is what we started this year with. It's very hard for us to deal with it. I thought we're supposed to be in a time of Mashiach. I thought that we're finished with the Inquisition, we're finished with the Crusades, we're finished with the Holocaust, we're finished with the pogroms. We're in a time now of wealth and of goodness and for the Yidden in the world, the way we saw the world behaving until this horrible day of October 7th, of Simchas Torah. So how are we supposed to feel? How can we feel strong and full of joy and full of bitachon in the Eibishter if it seems like things are going the opposite? So the Rebbe says, understand what's going on over here. Don't fall into despair. The fact that this unwanted event happens dafka in the day and in the age where you see revealed nisim for the Yidden. The answer is based on what we said earlier in the Sikh. The Seder in the world is it goes in a way of darkness and concealment. And only afterwards you have a revelation of light in the world. Like we learned earlier in the Sikha, that is the system of the entire universe, of the entire history of the world, where first there's darkness and chaos and emptiness. And this is a Seder that's in Torah also. And it's a Seder in the way we learn Torah. We always start from nothing and slowly come to the light and come to knowing things. So this is not shot that there was a change in the direction of the world, that we're finished, that the days of the goodness for the Yidden are over, chas v'shalom, that we just became further away from Mashiach, chas v'shalom. No, this is actually part and process of the revelation of the light. It's just that the great revelations of light come first through a darkness. We don't have to be concerned, we don't have to be worried, we don't have to be afraid at night from the fact that the Goyim are all starting and fighting against the Yidden, lumim yagu, and they're conspiring against us. Kivan, because like the pasuk continues, it is all in vain. Like like it says in Medish, Kol Rigushon Lirik, it's going to come to nothing. All the things that they're doing is going to fail. Kivan, why Sheyeshiv B'Shmaim Yitzchak Hashem Yilag Lamei, the Eibishter who sits in heaven and is in full control of the world, laughs at them. Yilag Lamei, and he makes fun of them, and he ruins all of their plans. And therefore the Yidden stand with complete strength and firmness, with unbending, without compromise, without bending. Much more so when it comes to a war which is being waged against Yerushalayim. From where do we get this conviction to stand up and say, no, this is our land? And what's the plan for the day after? It's our land, and there is no Palestinian land over here. You want to be a Palestinian, Zaymer Gesund and Stark, you're a Palestinian, I acknowledge it. Free Palestine, 100%. Palestine has to be free from the river to the sea. No problem. It's not here. Wherever Palestine is, go over there and free it. It's in Jordan. It's not my business to tell you if there is such a thing as a Palestinian. If there's not such a thing as a Palestinian, it's not my business to tell you where Palestine is. Geg is unterheit. Habt dein Palestine, habt dein Uganda, habt dein alles was du willst. You can have your rich history. You want to say that you come from 3,000 years ago, 4,000. No problem. I'm just telling you, it's not here. Huh? And if they say that they're the Shiva Goyim, the Plishtim lived right in the area of the Shiva Goyim. It's also interesting. Like you're noting over here. We're in Eretz Yisrael. We're in Gaza. They took the name. In other words, when they're coming, you see how it fits so well with the Medrash. When the Goyim are coming to the Yidden and saying that they want to have Eretz Yisrael, what are they making the claim based on? Plishtim. They're making the claim based on that we come from the 7 nations of the world who initially had the land, and you're the one who stole it from us. And the answer to them is, Zaymer Gesund, I'm not going to get into a conversation. It's not my business to tell you your history. It's not my business to tell you anything about Palestine. Huh? Okay, gain that, but I want to be clear that when I'm saying gain that, no, but I want to be clear that when I'm saying gain that, hang on.
I also hear the word gain that. I didn't. I hear Zaymer
because I want to be clear. I'm being purpose over here. Listen, what I want to be clear
so
about.
Why are you not clear when you say Zaymer?
Hold on, I'm going to explain to you. I want to be clear that for me to be right, I don't have to get into an argument with you. I don't have to find answers to all of the claims that every goy thinks up in his boich. Let him say what he wants, and I don't have to answer his things. I know what I know for sure is true, which is I'm on video.
What?
I'm on video.
You're on video.
No, I will.
I'm trying to.
What he wants
I
is
have
that
Eretz
when they get
Yisrael.
buried.
People.
No, he wants it when they get buried. They should be gesund, and they should.
I
suffer.
accept. I accept your machal. I accept. I accept it. And therefore, we stand with the full take. So that's the first thing. First of all, we know that this is not chas v'shalom, that we're returning to the days of darkness, that we're returning to times of darkness, and it's going to be a hard time for the Yidden. Chas v'shalom, it's going to be a good time for the Yidden. We're going to have our full victory. And if you look at things, the biggest nest, they say, somebody asked the Rebbe, why in the times of the Yom Kippur War, we didn't see the same nisim that the Yidden had in the times of the 6-Day War. And the Rebbe told him, Adrab, in the Yom Kippur War, there were much bigger nisim than ever happened in the 6-Day War. Unfortunately, it didn't come. It doesn't come across to us that way. I don't know how much the Rebbe explained or not, but basically, in the Yom Kippur War, the Yidden didn't do what they were supposed to, and their own actions caused that they should be in a real situation of danger, and that's what led to the situation. What was called the conception. Now again, we have another conception, the misguided conception of how they're going to be able to succeed. They let after the war of attrition, in order to end the war of attrition, they made that horrible agreement with the Egyptians where they let their military batteries in, and they agreed not to hold a strong standing army by the border. And then they also refused, even when they were getting the warnings, refused to acknowledge it. Similar things to what's happening now. It's unbelievable. But so even with all of those missteps, which should have led chas v'shalom to the total defeat of the Yiddish armies, they Eibishter made tremendous nisim that they wanted. It's the same thing now. You could ask, why didn't we see the nisim of the Eibishter? And the answer is that with all of the pain, but there were tremendous nisim. The biggest thing that's not understood now, that nobody has an answer for, is why on that first day did not the Yamach Shemomnikas Hezbollah in the north come in and attack Israel with their ability to shoot tens of thousands of missiles, and they have a military that's 10 times more professional and trained and larger than the Hamas military, and Israel was completely unprepared, off guard. They were caught flat-footed is an understatement. The same mistakes that existed in Gaza and let them just ride right through the border existed also in the north, and continue to exist for a day into it until they finally got their act together over there. And the fact that they didn't attack, it would have been the amount of karbanos. It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine such a thing that could have happened, and Iran could have joined with their missiles and with their other proxies that they have all over. It's what could, and not only that, and in the West Bank, all of the Arabs suddenly had a pachad. This was their biggest victory. They created the greatest humiliation to the Yidden. And what was their reaction? What did they do 2 years ago? The whole place was rioting. The whole Israel and Ramla and all of the Arab Israeli cities, they were rioting and blocking intersections and killing and vandalizing. Over here, the entire Israel was quiet. It's unbelievable. There's no explanation for it. That the so-called West Bank, in other words, Yehuda and Shemrin, that the Arabs over there in Ramallah, in other words, the places where the Palestinian Authority has control, they all stayed quiet. They didn't join. And all of the Israeli Arabs who showed what they're capable of doing also stayed quiet. These are the biggest nisim. There's no explanation to it. So we have to know that we're not chas v'shalom going back to darkness. We are in a process of the revelation of light. Unfortunately, sometimes the system in the world is that the revelation of light comes first with darkness. And now the Rebbe adds one more. And the second thing is that our answer to the goyim is that the Eibishter is the sole owner of this world as its creator, and he gave us Eretz Yisrael, and that's why it's ours. It's not ours because we came back to it after 2,000 years. No. It's ours because the Eibishter wanted for 2,000 years that it should be in the goyim's hands, and now he wants that it should be in our hands. That's why it's ours. Not because we came back to it. We're not claiming our right from 2,000 years ago. They're going to say they're claiming their right from 4,000 years ago, as the big as a lie as it is. But that's not our answer. Our answer is the Eibishter's land. He gave it to us. Yishleimer, you say to me that Debba adds something over here, which this really it's such a massive point. So at least, but Debba says it only in 4 lines. This situation itself of the nations of the world waging war against the Yidden are from the simonim, from the signs of Mashiach. So this is not only a bad thing that we're trying to find a way of understanding it, it's actually the simonim of Mashiach itself. Like Rashi says on this very pasuk, Shabbaseinu darshu, it's an inyan al melech HaMashiach. Our Chachamim darshan this pasuk, lama rak shugayim lumim yagurik. They say that this, the Chachamim say that this pasuk is talking about the times of Melech HaMashiach, that in his times, the nations of the world will gather and wage war against him. And this is what David says is going on now. And if you look in that Rashi, that's the second kapitel, pasuk out of the second kapitel in Tehillim. Rashi says that the Chachamim darshan this in the times of Mashiach. How does Rashi teach this pasuk? Based on Pshuti Shel Mikra, he says that this is in the time when David HaMelech became king. Who came to wage war against him? The Plishtim. The Plishtim came. It's a Rashi. The Plishtim all gathered together to wage war against David HaMelech, and he met them in battle and he defeated them. So the Rebbe says that this is from the Simanei Hagula. We're meeting these people who took the name of the Plishtim and they're trying to wage war against us. We are going to win them. We're going to be victorious. The Eibishter will make even bigger nisim, despite all of the missteps that's happening, that are being made. The Eibishter wird durchführen tremendous nisim for the Yidden. V'yiratzim v'oiket shel achli kol Simanei Hagula katavik v'tekef kvar v'tekef Hagula mitzvah shlim v'pilmamish. The Mashiach should come. After seeing all of these signs of Mashiach, that he should actually come to Mitzvah Chametz, and we should see with a revealed eye the nisim and the niflois of Mashiach. Which then there will be a completely new world, and this world will be in a form of Neichel Elyonim v'Neichel Tachtenim. It will be a world which will be pleasant for the Elyonim, for the Eibishter. V'Neichel Tachtenim will be a world which will be pleasant for the human beings, for humanity living in this world. And in a way of they will not wage war and they will not perform evil or destruction in my entire holy mountain. In other words, in Yerushalayim. Why? Because then the entire world will be covered with knowledge of the world, just like the ocean covers, just like the waters cover the ocean. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.